This is a quick review of the Wuben X1Pro as compared with its predecessor, the Wuben X1. As you can immediately tell, there are a few new things here. In addition to the sleeker design, there are a few changes that have been made to the LEDs. Not only do we have a huge flood channel, we also have a throw channel that has been added. And so that adds quite an enormous benefit to this light. In many ways, I would say that it in some ways adds to the benefit of the SK05 Pro, which also has this type of setup, albeit in a smaller form factor. So with that being said, we're going to take a little bit of a better look at some of the features of what we have here. Of course, being a larger light, it has removable batteries, and it's got a nice lock here, which lets you pop open and you can pull out and swap out the batteries if you want. And I believe you can even run it on one cell if you want. Let's see if that's truly the case. No, you cannot. So I hadn't actually tried that, but that's good to know. It gives you a little bit of an alert from the looks of it here when you try to do that. So that's a slight disappointment because the SK05 Pro can actually do that. So it would be great if you could, but hey, I understand that this uses a lot of power and perhaps that was a bit complicated for them. So running through the UI briefly here, there are several options and ways to run through this. First of all, you press and hold to get a moonlight mode, and that will just get you by for a fair amount of time. They advertise it as 455 hours at approximately 10 lumens. And then once it is on, you can also press and hold to get to low, medium, then high, and then of course turbo, which will blow out my camera and cause it to adjust a bit. But in any event, those are the options that you have here if you're using both the flood and throw channels at the same time. If I want to switch to just the flood channel, I can easily do that. If I want to switch to just the throw channel, I can do that as well. Of course, I did that backwards, but you get the idea. So here we have our profile for the throw, and then here you have the much broader flood. And I'll take this outside and show a bit better what that looks like for all practical purposes. At the turbo level, they advertise if you turbo both of them, and that falls at about 12,300 lumens, which then goes down over time and sustains at around, I believe, 2,500 lumens for a fair amount of time. So they advertise about 1.7 hours is what you'll get if you start with turbo. If you start with high, you get about 1.8 hours, and that's when the active cooling kicks in, which is really one of the best features of this light because, like its predecessor, this offers basically the highest sustained output that any light in this form factor really has to offer. To get anything close to this, you would have to get a much larger light with active cooling in order to really outdo it. And so for all practical purposes, to me, this is one of my favorite lights if I just want to brighten an area for a long period of time. And in many ways, it also makes the bike mount on the back here very practical because you could literally go for a bike ride for a couple hours just about and have light the whole time at the high level. If you're okay with 5 hours at 1,000 lumens, then you can bump that down as well. But either way, you have options here, and the versatility here is really what sets this apart. Some other things to mention here is that the fan can also run when the light is off. So if when it is on here, or even when it's off, I believe you tap 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that activates the fan. And even if you turn the light off, that will continue running. Perhaps you can hear it running here. Also, the fan is replaceable and is advertised as replaceable. So if it fails, you can replace that. The USB port is great as well. It's USB-C. Now, I do wish they had a little magnetic flap right here, kind of like Firefly lights do, but that's okay. It is easy access, fast charging, charges fully within about 2 hours, and it's just a little tricky to get back in there. You kind of have to massage it in a bit. But all things considered, I must say this holds in the hand so much better than the previous X1. This was a bit of a brick, and they have added some good chamfers to the edges to really just make it easier to hold. Another nice bonus is the lanyard with the charge cable built in, and that was included in mine. Really like that. It just makes it kind of convenient to have something that you can wrap around your hand and then also have that charge cable on you at all times. So that's pretty cool. One thing I do miss, however, on this light that is not present anymore as it was in the X1, is that on the X1 at every light level you could actually customize how bright that level was. So at low you could tweak by I believe you double tapped and held the button while the light was on. It would actually change the upper and lower limits, so you could choose where each level fell. That has been dropped as far as the X1 Pro is concerned, and I kind of miss that because I really like the ability to be able to increase the ceiling or lower the floor of some of these brightness settings. That just felt like an extra premium kind of add-on there. But nevertheless, it still offers a lot. The little LED on the side here on the button will indicate the different power levels, and they explain that in their manual here. So let's see if I can pull it open here. Right here you have when it's charging, it's red, fully charged is blue, and then they have an indication here of what the different flashes mean, whether red or blue for the different percentages. And then of course here are all of the respective levels of brightness. So you can pause there if you're interested in that. Overall, I really like this light. The one other thing though that just kind of bugs me a little bit is the holster that came with it. It is not the greatest holster. Here is the one for the X1, which is a traditional holster. You know, you just stick it in here, fits quite nicely, and clips right on. You know, traditional, kind of bulky, but it's a bulky light. What do you expect? The new holster is way smaller. Now, I think they did this for packaging purposes because obviously this thing is tiny, but the problem is how much of a pain in the neck it is to really get in the holster, because if you have the lanyard on and you try to put it on, you're really have to struggle to get it in here. I mean, maybe it's better when it's on your belt to just press down, but it's a hassle. What do you do with this? If I do it the other way around, it's even bigger and just as hard. I mean, if this is strapped on you, you really don't want to struggle too much with it. I mean, I guess you would want to put it face down anyway, but at that point, you're really just fighting this to get it in here. I don't see the point of it. It seems like way more hassle than necessary. And yeah, I'd say that obviously they tried to do something that was helpful here. I mean, in theory, that would mean that you can maybe attach it to something and use it. So maybe that's the idea behind this, especially since you can turn it. But again, this is a belt clip. What are you going to clip it to anyway that's going to really work? I mean, I guess you clip it on your belt, you can have it on as you're walking along, right, and shining forward. But other than that, the utility is really quite useless, I would say. So that's my opinion. Maybe other people love this and that's a big sell for them. But to me, it just felt like a little bit of a negative, quite honestly. Other than that, I really like this light. I miss the lack of a magnetic tail cap, which I've gotten used to with other lights. Like just getting this off is a hassle. 1 second there. There we go. But yeah, I mean, magnetic tail cap is available on the Loop Gear, which is great, but the Loop Gear is much smaller. It's not nearly as bright. It is great in its own regard for certain things, but it is not anywhere near as powerful as the X1 Pro. Now, I would say that it would have been nice if they had some kind of side light or UV or maybe RGB kind of options here, just to make better utilization of the space. But at the same time, I get that they're probably trying to focus more on heat management, and the active cooling does take up a lot of that additional space. So that makes sense, I get it. But I would love to see maybe future models adding a bit more utility there to add a bit more options. Another thing is that the primary LEDs here just don't offer great CRI, and I mean, that's been pretty typical for Wuben usually. It's part of the game if you're going for them. And honestly, most people who are going for this level of brightness aren't going for a high CRI and color rendering and all of that anyway. So it makes sense that it's not going to be a big deal for people. And then finally, I believe this is IP65 for weather. Obviously not submersion, because that would ruin the active cooling. So keep that in mind. This will be good if it's maybe lightly raining but if it's pouring or this gets dropped in a puddle, you may be in trouble. So that being said, really like it, highly recommend it. The beam profile is pretty smooth, doesn't have too many distracting rings unless you're trying to dual beam. Then of course you're going to run into a little bit of conflict there, but I mean that's to be expected. As long as you are in full flood or throw, it is generally pretty attractive. This is the X1 Pro with the low spot setting, medium spotlight setting, high spotlight setting, and then finally turbo spotlight for reference. For comparison, this is the SK05, and at its brightest, this is the SK05 Pro. Once again, this is the X1, SK05 Pro. X1 is a little bit broader of a beam so that you can see a bit of a more context. So this is a bit more punchy on the SK5 Pro, but certainly the X1 Pro is still excellent. Switching to the flood channel, maybe I'll just do the SK5 Pro first. This is the flood, and then this is the flood on the X1 Pro. As you can see, it's way, way brighter. Once again, much more focused beam on the SK05 Pro, and then just a huge floodlight of a light with the X1 Pro. And of course, when you switch to both, you have the benefit of punching through as well with the spotlight. And of course, I can do the same with the SK5 Pro with both channels, and it just doesn't get the same width with the floodlight as it does with the X1 Pro. The X1 Pro is just truly impressive with that 12,000 lumens. So all in all, an excellent light and an excellent job at punching through as it gets dark here.